Hey everybody, welcome to the Orange and Brown Talk podcast. Dan Labbe, Mary Kay Cabot, Ashley Bastock, all back together here for the first time in a while. Obviously, you've heard us on pods recently, but those were all pre-recorded. Now we are back. We are ready to go for training camp. But first, I gotta ask you guys this: how was your summer? Mary Kay, how was your summer? What'd you do this summer vacation?
Well, it's so funny when we talk about how was your summer because it really is about 2 weeks long, right? By the time we get done with Brown's mini camp and then you work for another week or two, getting some things done, we have about 2 weeks off basically. But I went out to Jackson Hole. It was a girls' trip. I still hang out with three of my best friends from high school. And then one of our friends from college joined us as well. And we call ourselves the Besties. And we had a really, really good time in Jackson Hole. Jackson Hole is amazing. Saw Grand Teton National Park, Yellowstone National Park. I saw Old Faithful erupt. I saw a moose. We only saw one moose, but one is better than none. Saw some elk. And that was about it as far as the animals, but just the hot springs and the geysers. And who knew that most of the world's geysers are in Yellowstone National Park, 350 of them. Who knew? It was really cool. Had a great time, and I'm ready to go. How about you guys?
Yeah, Ashley, I don't think I've heard it all about your son. I learned the geyser fact yesterday. I knew about the one big one. I didn't know about the other 390 or whatever.
Wow.
But,
I gotta say, I have a knowledge gap when it comes to geysers. So Mary Kay is teaching me a lot about the nature out west here. But yeah, I mean, my only trip I took was actually in May before we really started OTAs when I went to New York. So I didn't go anywhere these couple weeks that I had off and wasn't really writing anything. I mostly just relaxed in the pool. But as you guys know, since we haven't recorded since all this happened during my vacation, I had to take a vacation from my vacation because news broke that Cleveland is getting a WNBA team. And I had a little scoop on that. So obviously it was a big enough story and interesting. And I was really excited to write it. So I took a vacation day, kind of modified, took off a little bit longer, and kind of par for the course. I think we're kind of all like this when you get something really big, really exciting. If you're able to move around your schedule to accommodate it, you do. So I did that, and really, besides that, it was just like sort of a staycation for me. You guys will see me. I hope you're impressed with how tan I am because I have been outside for a lot. So that was really about it. Dan, you took the lengthiest trip of all of us, I think.
I think I did. I don't know if it was longer than Mary Kay's trip, but yeah, we left like 4th of July weekend, and we were in Colorado, not just Denver, but we were in Colorado for it was probably about an 8-day trip. So yeah, it was good. Visited Shador Country in Boulder. Saw that little statue they have outside Folsom Field. I took a run over there. Yeah, so it was So Mary Kay, you and I were talking about this. We drove up Pikes Peak, which is like when you get past the tree line, it's like 2 lanes, and it's like the white line in your lane, and then it's just a drop off. And you got to experience kind of the same thing, like driving up these mountain roads, or it's road and then just nothing. So if I think you said yesterday, like a raccoon runs out in front of the car, like you're going over the edge.
Yes. And I was on the passenger side on the scariest part of the trip. And I could not even look over to my right. I couldn't do it and I was leaning towards the driver, trying to make sure that the car stayed on the road instead of us just going down the mountainside. And that was, I can't remember if it was in the Grand Teton National Park or if we were already in Yellowstone National Park by that point, because you just go kind of from one to the other when you're in Jackson Hole. But that part was pretty scary. I'm not a huge fan of heights. We also did take a gondola all the way up a mountain that in the summertime, of course, it's used for skiing. And I was okay in that because that was enclosed, but it's you have to be pretty brave to want to ski down some of these crazy mountains. And do some of these things, but it was fun.
Yeah, my son and my wife were like, they were doing the lean in too, especially when it was like on the passenger side. That was like, oh, there's the drop off. They were kind of doing the lean in, like it was gonna matter while I'm just white knuckling my way up the Pikes Peak Highway or whatever it's called.
Yeah.
I have one more thing I did that did not involve traveling, but I saw the Superman movie, which have either of you guys gotten to see that yet?
I
Because that just
haven't.
came out.
No.
Yeah,
Not yet.
I liked it. I think like most Cleveland people will get the enjoyment that I got, which is being like, oh, there's the public square, there's the Leader Building, there's the beach in Menor. Like it was cool to just see all the Cleveland places, and obviously living downtown, I remember when they were filming and things were blocked off, and seeing the Metropolis Meteors signs all around downtown and the Daily Planet stuff, and obviously at cleveland.com our photogs. Josh Gunter and John Kuntz were everywhere as that was going on. So it was really, really cool to see all of the Cleveland locations. And for anyone else who has seen this, Crypto the dog, which you guys may have seen stuff about Crypto already, he is like the star of the movie. I'm convinced James Gunn, I know the backstory, don't come at me. I know the backstory for how Crypto the dog exists, but Crypto the dog is very Paul Anka. Like it just felt like I was watching a CGI version of Paul Anka, my dog, on the screen. And it was very, very, very fun. And I'm glad I got to see it before camp starts.
Yeah, I can't wait to see it. I really want to see it. I just think it's so cool that Superman was born, invented, whatever, in Cleveland. It's just another little feather in our cap. And I think it's so cool that it's just a chance to put Cleveland's best foot forward, especially when you have people like Johnny Manziel talking about throwing some shade again at Cleveland, which kind of has to take a lot of that. But yeah, so I can't wait to see it.
Yeah, I have not seen it yet either. I did do a Cedar Point trip, by the way. My daughter likes Cedar Point. Still hits. Still a great little day. Exhausting day, but still a great little day to head over to Cedar Point. So that was fun.
You were at Cedar Point the same night that my son was there, and
Oh,
I was
yeah?
going to tell you. Yeah, I was going to tell you guys to meet up over at the Papa Shot and have a little contest.
Well, they had that basketball court that he didn't he break some record there or something?
Yeah.
Or
Yep.
so they had, I walked by that basketball court and I'm like, oh, that's the spot. History was made there. So who knows?
That is the spot.
Maybe we crossed each other's paths and didn't know.
You may have. You may have.
All right. Well, that's it. Summer vacation is over. It's football time. It is the next 6 months. The Cleveland Browns will dominate our lives. So let's do this. So I put up a predictions post. Mary Kay, you did a post that sort of reset sort of where things are with the Browns, what might be going on. And it kind of got me thinking, obviously there's a lot that's up in the air with this football team. We don't know what this season is going to look like. I'm pretty pessimistic about it. It kind of depends who you talk to. Some people feel really good about this team, some people don't. But let's do this. We can work off sort of the stuff we wrote. We can just kind of throw random things out there, whatever. But Mary Kay, what excites you about this training camp? Because this is such a new sort of era for the Browns, or the start of a new era. They went all in with this Deshaun Watson trade. It didn't work. There's still some remnants of that left. And now they're kind of trying to dig their way out of this. So I think maybe there's some people trying to figure out what's exciting about this football team and what's exciting about this camp. So as you're sitting there kind of resetting things and you're who's in, who's out, things like that, what has you excited about this training camp?
Well, I can't remember the last time I was at this point having no idea who the starting quarterback was going to be in week one. I do remember back when Baker was drafted in 2018, we knew that was going to be a little bit of a competition there in training camp. But for the most part, we've kind of known who the starting quarterback is going to be on week one. And I've never covered a four-way quarterback competition. Never. I can't even find four-way quarterback competitions out there in the NFL universe very much. I'm sure there have been some, but maybe not quite like this, where four guys head into this camp with a decent shot, not a great shot, a decent shot of making their case and planting their flag and showing the world that they deserve to start on week 1. Might not last that long, might only last a couple of weeks or so, but as we head into training camp for the very first time for us tomorrow, and then fans get to come out on Friday, I've never seen anything like this before.
Yeah, it's a good question. I'm not sure when the last true quarterback competition was, because even that Baker one was, I mean, we all knew Baker was going to start eventually. I mean, Hugh had made it kind of clear that he didn't want to start him week 1. Even that was like, all right, even if Baker's not the week 1 starter, we know at some point this season, probably sooner rather than later, he was going to take over. Did Cody Kessler have to win? No, I don't know. Was that a competition? I can't think of the last time we've had a competition, which is funny because that position has been so unsettled for so long. But Ashley, a 4-person quarterback competition. No matter what you think of any of these guys, this is a fascinating competition to watch.
It is, and I think about the ramifications even just outside of these 4 guys, right? Like we've talked about the 2 spotting that we saw them do in the spring, and we know they've obviously brought in more pass catchers too to be able to do that. So I mean, I do think there are chances here for some guys to make rosters or make practice squads that otherwise wouldn't have that chance. And sometimes there are fun stories out of that. But as you guys were talking and trying to figure out the last time there was a competition, like I'm thinking I've never had to cover a QB competition. And I would say the closest I even got to anything like that was in 2022, when we obviously knew Deshaun was going to be their starter, but we were waiting on the suspension for a large chunk of the offseason and the summer. And then it became really tracking reps for him and Jacoby Brissett once we knew exactly what that suspension was going to be, and as the Browns were trying to figure out how to divide those things. So really, this is a first for me, and I think definitely it is the note for everyone who cares about the Browns and is watching this training camp.
Okay, I think I found the last real open competition, and these are some names: Cody Kessler, Brock Osweiler, and Deshaun Kaiser. That was in 2017. So Mary Kay, I think that's the last time we've had a real, hey, anybody could win this thing competition. And those aren't exactly names that inspire people. I do wonder if so what was that, 8 years ago? If we're still doing this podcast in 2033, are we going to be looking back and saying, man, remember that quarterback competition between Kenny Pickett and Joe Flacco and Shedeur Sanders and Dylan Gabriel? I wonder if it'll take on that kind of tone, or maybe, I'm sure the Browns are hoping this, maybe we'll look back on this competition and it'll be a moment when the Browns found their guy, whether that was Dylan Gabriel or Shedeur Sanders or maybe even Kenny Pickett. Maybe somehow, some way, this team that has had no luck at this position just stumbles into their guy here.
Well, that's what they're hoping. They hope that they find a diamond in the rough in one of these guys, and that perhaps someone out of this group can become their quarterback of the future. Will it happen? I don't know. I mean, I suppose it could happen. It seems to me a little bit more likely that their quarterback of the future will come in next year's draft, but I don't know. I mean, we hear good things about Dylan Gabriel. We've heard really good things about Kenny in this system. We've seen some good things from those guys. Shedeur Sanders, you can't count him out with the things that we've seen from him. So they might just end up with someone that sticks and could impact how they go forward into the draft next year.
And Ashley, one of the things we talked about on the Hey MK pod was sort of the challenges of this. At some point these reps do start to dry up. And especially when the season starts, it's going to be hard for the guys who aren't starting. I don't know if people can hear the hammering in the background, but my roof is getting worked on. And I'm in the basement, so they're really going at it up there. So that's what you hear in the background, if you can pick that up on the pod. I do think the challenge of this is there is going to come a point when one of these rookies, and probably one of the vets, there just aren't going to be reps for that guy. So I don't know how you ultimately develop that guy or ultimately get an answer on both of these guys.
Yeah, I mean, I think that to me, I just wonder how feasible it's going to be. And I don't know. I don't know exactly what they're going to do because those reps do become precious. And like, I do think because of the two first rounders you have next year, you have to have answers on both of those guys. And I don't know that it's quite like fair, quote unquote, or how they're going to go about doing that. But I mean, I think we kind of laid it out, right? You look at about the midway point of the season or earlier, assuming it's going to be Joe Flacco or Kenny Pickett early, and then assuming they're not in the hunt for a playoff spot, then I think you're going to have to give both of those guys starts. But yeah, it's like in this camp, even the reps are going to get really precious really quickly. We've talked about eyeing that joint practice week against the Eagles really as kind of being the mark where they have to have an answer and know what they're doing. But at other positions with rookies, we talk about training camp and consistent reps, consistent availability during training camp is always so key for their development. And the quarterbacks just aren't going to have that if you're not the starter, which I don't think either of the rookies are going to be the starter week one, where things stand now, and everything we've seen so far. So that is the interesting part to me, where I'm like, how are they going to successfully determine what each of these guys have? And I think that's the scary part if you're a fan, right? Like, I don't know that it's necessarily possible to be able to do that. So where are they going to be at the end of the season with that? I'm not quite sure, but you really are going to have an idea based on the two first rounders you have next year.
Okay, so Ashley, now it's your turn. What are you excited about? What should people, if somebody says to you, why should I be excited about this training camp? What are you telling them?
I'm going to stick with something I've written about a lot, and I wrote about it a lot during the end of the offseason program. I think this D-line is going to have a chance to be pretty good. And it's tricky, though, because in training camp and practices, the line is something that you're not going to get a full picture of, right? Because they're not hitting their quarterbacks. But I think it has the potential to be pretty deep. I think they've let some pieces go. They brought some pieces in, particularly Mason Graham, who I think is going to be an exciting guy for Browns fans to watch in the middle of that defense. As Mike Hall continues to get up to speed after his knee injury, we're going to get a chance to see what those two look like together. But for me, it's about that D-line continuing to be the engine of that defense, and guys like Alex Wright potentially, who I think has a leg up to win that second starting edge rusher job. Guys like Isaiah McGuire, some of these younger edge rushers that fans are going to be able to get to see. And even when they can't hit quarterbacks, I think you can still see them making plays. Like I know I've posted videos and written about Alex Wright on his last day of mandatory minicamp. A couple of times he breaks through that offensive line, comes off the edge, and they pull up to stop themselves from hitting everybody, but they have their hands up. You can see that they are causing disruption. So if I'm picking something to watch on the defensive side of the ball, I think it's that group as a whole.
Yeah, and for folks who were listening to some of our July pods, Lance Reisland is really bullish on that D-line too. It is an interesting group, and it's a young group, and I think you look at that edge rusher position. We either come out of this season saying, hey, the Browns found that guy that can be there for a long time, or we're sitting there in October or November thinking they're going to need to prioritize this position in the offseason and find somebody either in the draft, free agency, whatever it is. But the fascinating thing here, Mary Kay, is the investment they've made on the inside of that line, where you've used the number 5 overall pick on a defensive tackle, which is a really high pick for a defensive tackle. I think that's a lot of pressure on a guy like Mason Graham if you're going to take a D tackle that high. And then last year, a second round pick. It was their first pick, a second round pick on Mike Hall. And as you mentioned in your story today, he's probably going to start camp on PUP because he was carted off in that week 18 loss to Baltimore. But this team has very clearly invested real resources in the middle of that line, and that just tells you how they kind of value that position right now.
Well, the defensive tackle position has seen a sea change since this regime took over. When they first started here, the Andrew Berry, Kevin Stefanski regime, defensive tackle was somewhat of an afterthought. And as the years have gone by, defensive tackle has become a premium position. And now those defensive tackles are getting paid in free agency like the ends, and they're just as important and just as disruptive in many cases as those defensive ends are. So people are looking for that interior rush, and you can see the Browns are all in on it. They are in on the defensive tackle bandwagon, and they can't wait to get Mason Graham and Mike Hall in there together. Now, as you mentioned, Mike Hall will be starting on the physically unable to perform list. That means he can come off of that list at any time. And I'm sure the Browns are going to want to be conservative about what they're saying, because we've heard Andrew say this before, that he kind of got a little too optimistic about when his offensive tackles were coming back last season. And that was a problem in the early part of the season, a big problem. And so I don't think he wants to oversell the return of Mike Hall and what's going to be happening there on that defensive interior with Mason and Mike. But they're really looking forward to that. They want to see what these two guys are going to do together in terms of getting that pressure up the middle. They're excited about it. In the meantime, while Mike is still rehabbing from an unspecified knee injury, by the way, Malik Collins, a longtime veteran, free agent pickup, will be in there with Mason Graham. And as we know, of course, with Mason Graham, it's a little bit of a change for him in terms of his philosophy of how he has played that position at Michigan. He didn't attack all the time. Now they're taking the reins off him. They're taking the leash off him, and he's just supposed to go see quarterback, get quarterback. So we'll have to see how that works out. But these are some of the things that are going to be happening on the D-line. And then, of course, when you get over to the other edge rush position opposite Miles over there, you've got Alex, you've got Isaiah, and you've got Joe Tryon Shoyinka. And he's going to really make a strong case for playing time there too. So we'll have to see if who's going to win that job or who's going to be up in the rotation. And then as they go along, who's going to nail it down? Who's going to be that guy that stays on the field longer than the others? Who's going to get close to double-digit sacks? Because they need somebody else, I think, to get close to double-digit sacks if they're playing D-line the way they want to.
Okay. Look, it wouldn't be a training camp pod. It wouldn't be a new season pod if the thing that I said I was excited about wasn't a vibe check. I'm doing vibes. Now, look, this is very easy to say on July 22nd. We will see what happens if this team does have a bad record, if they do lose games, if the offense struggles. Anything can happen 6 months from now. So I would not rule anything out if this team does not perform well this season. However, and I'll also add that the Quinshon Judkins arrest changes this dynamic a little bit. Probably a lot, honestly. But all of that said, there is a feeling, and there was more, I felt like this more before the Judkins arrest, but there is a feeling that this is a little bit of a transition. This team went all in. It didn't work. And they're kind of moving away now from that. Now, I know Deshaun Watson is still in the building, and who knows, maybe there's some crazy scenario where Deshaun Watson plays for the Cleveland Browns again. But it feels like that has been lifted at least a little in the fans' minds. I just get the vibe, Mary Kay, that well, maybe there isn't a ton of excitement about this team. And again, I keep saying this, I know, but again, the Judkins arrest, I do think kind of slammed on the brakes a little bit on this. I do feel like people feel better about this football team maybe than they did at the end of the season. People were really angry at the end of the season. They were kind of out for blood. But I think for the most part, people are kind of ready for this transition into whatever happens this season and then whatever happens over the next few years. I feel like fans are ready for that. Do you kind of get that vibe?
I feel like fans are cautiously optimistic about this season. I don't sense out there in the community that fans really believe that the Browns are going to make the playoffs this year, or that they're going to make some kind of a run to go deep into the playoffs and that they're going to win a ton of games. I don't really get the sense that people are getting their hopes up sky high. One thing I do hear a lot out there, and I'm sure you guys do as well, and that is there are a lot of fans who want Joe Flacco to start for this football team.
That would be a big time vibe check.
Right? And if they believe, so many fans out there believe that if Joe is going to be the starter, that he's going to pick up where he left off in 2023 at the end of that season and went 4-1 and got them into the playoffs. A lot has happened since then. He's a little bit older. There were some extenuating circumstances with some of the opponents that they played. They didn't necessarily play the best defenses in that stretch, and the wheels kind of came off in the playoff game on both sides of the ball. But that is the vibe check that I get out there in the community, that fans think that Joe Flacco is riding in on a white horse to save the season like he did in 2023. We'll have to see how it goes.
Yeah, and I'm trying to, I guess for me, what it is it feels like it's almost like this team not being a contender has been good for this fan base, because part of what came with that contention and maybe thinking, hey, this team has a chance to go win a Super Bowl is, well, I kind of have to look the other way with this Deshaun Watson stuff, and I sort of have to I just have to accept him as the starting quarterback and all that. And it almost feels like that weight again. And look, we're going to see him at camp. He'll probably be hanging out in the weight room like he was at mini camp and OTAs. So, I mean, there'll be photos of him and videos of him, I'm sure. And we don't know what list he's going to end up on just yet. So we'll see about that in the next couple days. I guess, actually, to me, there's just sort of this, we always joke about Zen Ashley. Again, the Judkins arrest change of this did make people angry, and rightfully so. But I feel a little bit like there's just some zen in this fan base. Like, kind of know what this team is going to be. Kind of know what those 2 first-round picks. I feel like there's at least a little bit of calm in this fan base right now.
Yeah, I mean, I do think Deshaun Watson has caused a lot of consternation for the last 3+ years now at this point, amongst these fans, and infighting amongst the fans, and frustration because of the allegations against him, frustration when he was injured, frustration when he was playing poorly. So there was all of this swirling around this team, and I feel like ever since Jimmy Haslam at the owner meetings referred to it as a swing and a miss, I don't know about you guys, but I feel like amongst the fan base since that point, it's kind of been a sigh of relief that, okay, they recognize that this was a mistake. Jimmy essentially said it that way, and everyone, I feel like, has this perception of, okay, we can move on. Now, of course, the caveat to all of this is never say never. He is still on this team and a part of this organization in some capacity. We're going to have to see where they place him, on cut down day, and kind of get a feel of where things are headed from there. Like, we know he's still involved and in that quarterback room. All of these younger quarterbacks, especially Dylan Gabriel and Shedeur Sanders, have talked about him, right? And the input he's having there, and the way he has offered help or advice to them in different ways. But I do think that was just kind of a cloud that was hanging over this fan base, and it does feel like it has largely dissipated for the most part.
Now, again, I will also... Oh, go ahead, Mary Kay.
I was just going to say that that Deshaun will be placed on the physically unable to perform list today or tomorrow. And then when it does come time for roster cutdown day, then he will be moved to the reserve PUP list, and he will be on PUP during the season. And then the Browns have, certain parameters in which they can open a practice window for him and potentially activate him. I honestly don't really see that happening. And if he doesn't get activated, or if they don't activate him during his 21-day practice window, then he remains on PUP for the rest of the season. But he's not even supposed to be ready to practice until like October, November. And when he is, we have no idea if they will think about opening that window. So I don't think fans are going to see Deshaun Watson necessarily on the field this season. But as we always qualify it, never say never. We don't know how it's going to go yet.
And again, just like I said, vibes feel okay right now. And sometimes, I'm sure you guys get asked this too. Sometimes you'll get asked, like, well, are Kevin and Andrew safe? Are they on the hot seat and all this? And right now it feels like things might be okay for those guys, but we know how the NFL works. You start losing games, you're 1-5, 2-4, or think the wheels fall off at the end of the year again, and you're not scoring points. People can get a little anxious. So right now, everything feels calm. Everything feels like, okay, it's smooth-ish sailing. Again, we'll see how this Judkins situation plays out. It's smoothish sailing right now, but we'll kind of see once the real football starts. But it does feel like there's a little bit of zen in this fan base, I think. So there we go. That's my big positive. We know how Zen Ashley usually works out, so hopefully it'll go a little better for the fan base than it does for Zen Ashley.
Yeah, we've never really actually met Zen Ashley. We've
No,
heard
I don't know.
about
I don't know if she actually exists.
Guys, I am Ashley, and I don't know if she exists. So that tells you everything we need to know. Because you see, the problem with Zen Ashley is she keeps getting pushed back. Right? We'll say she's starting at the beginning of the new year, and then it becomes like the new league year, and then it becomes when training camp starts, and then pretty soon we're just in that cycle again. So I fear we're at that point, and all I know is less than 24 hours. I don't think Zen Ashley's going to appear today. We're going to find out though.
Listen, if I learned anything this summer, go see some mountains, Ashley. Go get on a plane, or it's a long drive, but you drive out to go see some mountains.
I don't really do nature. That's the problem. Like that's famously don't really do nature. Don't really do hiking unless, as Mary Kay and I say, it's at Crocker Park. Then that's about the extent of my hiking ability.
Mm-hmm.
We're gonna have like a Browns beat, that episode of Hacks. We're just gonna have our own little hiking episode. Okay, that will do it for this edition of the Orange and Brown Talk podcast. We will be back at training camp beginning on Wednesday. 4 days of practice in a row coming up, and fans will be there for the first time on Friday. So we are completely gearing up here, getting ready to go. All of our coverage at cleveland.com/Browns, which is where you can become a Football Insider subscriber. It's the blue banner at the top of the page. Our Instagram is Orange and Brown Talk. Our Twitter is Orange Brown Talk. And of course, if you're not subscribed to this pod on Apple Podcasts and Spotify, get subscribed, and get subscribed to our YouTube channel, Cleveland Browns on cleveland.com. For Mary Kay and Ashley, I'm Dan. Thanks for listening, everybody.